This week, with an interview for The New Yorker, a whistleblower who served on Jared Kushner's shadow task force for the pandemic response says that Kushner actively told members of the response team to alter data on how many people had died in the United States from COVID-19. This whistleblower happens to be a grandson of former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, though in the article they don't actually mention the name. They say Kennedy and that he was the grandson, but nonetheless, whistleblower who was a member of the task force, by the way. They were actually put on the procurement team. And what they said about the procurement team was just as terrifying as what they said about the altering of the data. Because they said that the procurement team was all a bunch of young people, roughly all of them in their 20s. And when he put them all together, they assumed they were the support staff to more experienced people who knew how to go about procuring medical equipment. But nope, they were the team. Described it as Lord of the Flies style. Anarchy, chaos, none of them knew what they were doing. It was absolute, utter insanity. And it became quite brutal too. So that's one of the reasons why we saw such a shoddy response from the federal government in responding to this. Because Jared Kushner's task force, as we've reported, they were in charge of kind of confiscating supplies that hospitals were ordering. Hospitals were able to get their hands on masks and ventilators and things like that. And the shipments would come in and they would immediately, before they could be unloaded, be intercepted by the federal agents. Federal agents would then take all the equipment. FEMA, under Kushner's direction, would redistribute it. And nobody quite knows where it would go after that. Places that needed it didn't get it. Places that didn't quite need it got more of it, like down here in the state of Florida. We received far more equipment than we needed at the time because our governor was a Trump lover. Places like New York, where you had a obviously not Trump lover as governor, they got kind of starved for equipment. And then Kushner came along, according to the whistleblower, and told them to lie, to actually physically alter the data about how many people had died from this disease. There has to be prosecutions. And I know it's not going to happen during this administration. I'm reluctant to think it's going to happen even if Democrats sweep the House, the Senate, and the White House after November. But it has to happen. People died because of this kind of negligence. People died because of this arrogance, and people died because of these lies. Even if you're not going to throw somebody in jail for it, we still need to know what happened and who to blame. So that way, they don't get to just leave Washington, D.C. and go about their lives and live happily ever after. They get to live with the guilt and the shame of knowing that every person they pass on the street knows that they helped kill 250,000 Americans. I don't want Jared Kushner to ever have a good night's sleep again. I want him to be haunted by the voices of the dead. I want every time for him to step out of his house, anytime he walks down the street, I want him to be met with the glares of people who know what he did. Anytime he tries to attend a party, I want him to have to sit sullenly by himself in a corner because nobody is willing to associate with him because he is negligent of all the homicide. Or I guess the better way to say that, the proper way to say that would be he's guilty of negligent homicide. But I want him to feel it every second of every day for the rest of his life. He can live to a ripe old age. That would be great. Same thing with Ivanka. Same thing with every other person who was a part of this administration's response to this. I want people to know, and the people have a right to know. Not because we want to do something to them, but because we want to make sure these people are shunned for the rest of their lives. That's the punishment these people deserve. Because the one thing they crave more than anything is power and attention. And if we starve them from that, that's almost worse than putting them in jail. Because psychologically, that is what's going to hurt them far worse than any punishment from the legal system.